Please forgive me, my love.
After all you've done?
Stay down! Get away from him! You don't own him!
Stop this now!
It's over. You have no power here.
You can't do this.
Watch me.
New Year's Eve arrived with a glittering chill in the air, snow dusting the streets outside the Morel estate like a delicate promise of celebration. Inside, the grand hall was alive with music, laughter, and the clinking of crystal flutes. Yet one figure moved through it with measured calm, unshaken by the festivities around her. Zayla Kendrick's presence was magnetic, her posture regal, her eyes green and piercing beneath the soft glow of chandeliers. Every guest who glanced at her felt an unspoken authority emanate from her, a subtle reminder that she was not merely a guest of the night, but the owner of the entire narrative unfolding around her. In the corner of the room, her husband, Deacon Morel, leaned against a gilded column, phone in hand. His face was relaxed, practiced in charm, a mask honed over years of careful deception. He didn't notice Zayla observing him from across the hall, her gaze calculating, measuring. A buzz interrupted the music and laughter. Deacon's phone lit up with a message. The screen illuminated his face, revealing his smirk as he read the notification. He chuckled softly, unaware that the smirk would not last. The message was from his mistress, Soraya Wells, a woman ambitious, manipulative, and reckless, unaware that her little game had already played into Zayla's hands. Zayla glided silently through the crowd, her black silk gown whispering against the marble floors. And each step was deliberate, unhurried, her fingers lightly brushing the delicate clutch she carried. She reached Deacon just as he tilted the phone to hide it from view, a gesture that spoke volumes of his awareness, yet revealed his panic beneath the practiced charm. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, the kind that promised nothing and yet warned everything. "Happy New Year," she said softly, leaning just close enough to see the screen. Her voice was smooth, cold, and precise, like ice forming on a winter lake. Deacon's eyes widened as the words on the screen were illuminated by Zayla's presence. The message read, "I know everything. Tonight, you make a choice. You cannot hide forever." A photo attachment revealed Soraya's carefully staged scene, a trap designed to humiliate Zayla, but it had instead handed her the ultimate leverage. Zayla's smirk deepened, controlled, knowing. She leaned over, reading the message in its entirety, her composure flawless. "Happy New Year," she repeated, this time with an edge of authority that cut through the laughter of the hall. "You're done." Deacon froze, the blood draining from his face as realization struck. Every carefully concealed infidelity, every whispered lie, every manipulation he had thought would remain secret now lay exposed in the calm, commanding gaze of his wife. The room around them seemed to fade, the music dimming in his ears, leaving only Zayla's voice, precise and unyielding. What he wanted to speak, to salvage even a shred of control, but no words came. His pride, long nurtured, crumbled silently. Zayla straightened, letting a subtle authority radiate from her. She didn't need to raise her voice. The power of patience, intelligence, and observation was already suffocating Deacon. She had known his habits, his weaknesses, and his arrogance. For months, she had watched, learning every mannerism, every sleight of character, every lie. Now, all of it converged in a single, devastating moment. The message from Soraya, intended to destabilize Zayla, had become the instrument of Deacon's unraveling. Across the hall, Soraya watched with a mixture of curiosity and irritation. She had expected to see Zayla shocked, enraged, or caught off guard, but instead she saw calm calculation. Zayla's eyes met hers for a brief second, and Soraya's blood ran cold, the first hint that the supposed victim was, in fact, orchestrating the next act. In every step Zayla took toward them was deliberate, a subtle predator closing in. Deacon attempted to mask his panic, shifting his weight from one foot to the other, but the illusion was gone. His mistress's arrogance offered no shield. It was a fragile, collapsing mask beneath Zayla's gaze. Zayla's hand lightly touched his arm, not a gesture of tenderness, but a controlled reminder of power. "Do you understand?" she whispered, her eyes unwavering. Everything you thought you could hide. It's no longer yours to control." Deacon's throat tightened, his mind scrambling for excuses, for diversions, for any route to salvage dignity. but Zayla's presence left him paralyzed. She had transformed humiliation into strategy, weakness into leverage. Every ounce of his pride, every arrogant smirk from the past had led him here exposed and impotent. The crowd around them remained unaware of the seismic shift occurring within their midst. His glasses clinked, laughter continued, but the tension between Zayla, Deacon, and Soraya was a silent hurricane, powerful and invisible. Zayla stepped back slightly, letting the weight of her words sink into the minds of both men. Alejandro, or rather Deacon, was no longer a threat. The mistress, previously confident, now realized she had underestimated the woman she sought to undermine. Zayla had anticipated every move, had converted months of careful observation into instantaneous control. And as the clock in the grand hall struck midnight, fireworks erupted outside, illuminating the night sky. The explosion of light and color contrasted sharply with the cold, deliberate calm inside the room. Zayla's smirk remained, subtle but unmistakable, as she acknowledged the new year and the new reality. The balance of power had shifted irrevocably. Deacon's frozen expression, Soraya's dawning panic, and the oblivious celebration around them created a tableau of dominance, humiliation, pause and strategy perfectly orchestrated by Zayla Kendrick. With a final, measured glance at both Deacon and Soraya, Zayla turned gracefully, her presence commanding attention as she moved back into the crowd. Every step echoed authority, her mind already mapping the next phase of the plan. The night had begun with laughter and celebration, but for those who had underestimated her, it ended with clarity, control, and the unmistakable knowledge that she was untouchable. The message on the phone had been a trigger, but the execution of consequence, patience, and foresight was entirely hers. By the time she reached her private suite, Zayla allowed herself the faintest smile, not of cruelty, but of satisfaction. The year had turned, and so had the power dynamics. She was no longer merely the betrayed wife. She was the orchestrator, the strategist, the unassailable presence who could turn betrayal into triumph without raising her voice, without rushing, without a single misstep. Deacon and Soraya's panic was not the end. It was only the beginning of her precise, unstoppable reclamation of control. The morning after New Year's, the Morel estate was quieter than usual. Snow still blanketed the grounds, sparkling in the early sunlight, but inside, Zayla Kendrick moved with purpose, every step measured, every glance intentional. The events of the previous night had left Deacon Morel frozen and Soraya Wells teetering on the edge of panic. And Zayla knew that strategy required patience. Today would be about observation, positioning, and ensuring no escape from the consequences she had begun orchestrating. Deacon sat in his private study, hands trembling slightly as he tried to gather composure. His mind raced, replaying the message, Zayla's smirk, and the sharpness in her voice. He had thought himself untouchable, a man whose power and connections could shield him from personal and professional exposure. Yet last night had proven otherwise. Every excuse, every defensive thought, every carefully constructed alibi seemed meaningless now. He was exposed, and more importantly, he knew Zayla's awareness extended far beyond that single message. Meanwhile, Zayla was already implementing the first steps of her plan. She contacted her most trusted aide, Malik, a longtime friend and strategist whose intuition rivaled her own. In the privacy of her office, now she laid out the evidence she now possessed. Deacon's ongoing infidelity, Soraya's ambitions, and the subtle manipulations that had threatened both her reputation and her control over the Morel Empire. Malik listened intently, noting every nuance of Zayla's calm authority. "Everything is in place," she said, her voice low but precise. "Patience is a weapon. Let them think they still hold power, then dismantle them completely." Zayla spent the rest of the morning reviewing financial records, and social connections, and past correspondence. Every detail mattered. Every message from Soraya, every unexplained transfer, every dinner invite or late-night meeting was now a piece of the puzzle. She realized that Soraya's arrogance had been her greatest weakness. Believing she could outmaneuver a woman like Zayla was a fatal miscalculation. Deacon, too, was underestimating the extent of her foresight, assuming fear alone would keep him from exposure. Both had misread the situation entirely. By afternoon, Zayla decided it was time to confront Deacon indirectly. She summoned him to the private study under the pretense of discussing estate matters. Deacon entered, attempting a casual smile, but Zayla's piercing gaze immediately cut through the facade. "Good morning," she said smoothly. I trust you slept well after the events of last night? The question was rhetorical, yet each word dripped with icy control. Deacon shifted uncomfortably, trying to gauge if this was a threat, a test, or a casual remark. Zayla continued, her tone deceptively calm. I've been reviewing everything. The messages, the meetings, the implications. It seems some choices were made without consideration for consequences. Deacon opened his mouth, then closed it again. He realized that whatever explanation he could offer would be swallowed by the weight of her observation. Every action of his had already been noted, analyzed, and cataloged. The mistress's message had been a catalyst, but Zayla's preparation ensured it would not remain the only weapon in her hands. Meanwhile, Soraya grew impatient and reckless. Believing Deacon had managed the situation and that Zayla's smirk was merely intimidation, she sent another message, taunting him with hints of power and influence. Zayla, monitoring discreetly, intercepted the communication. A small, satisfied smile crossed her lips. Soraya had confirmed everything Zayla needed: intent, arrogance, and overconfidence. And this message would serve as proof in the coming confrontation, a tool to solidify authority and leave no room for denial. As evening approached, Zayla organized a private dinner, ostensibly to discuss the family's New Year plans and the estate's upcoming ventures. Deacon attended, still attempting to mask anxiety behind rehearsed charm, while Soraya was unaware that her every move was being watched and cataloged. During the meal, Zayla spoke softly but deliberately, all drawing out minor admissions from Deacon, asking pointed questions with casual precision. Each response revealed more than he realized, feeding the growing dossier of evidence Zayla now held. By the time dessert was served, the psychological pressure on both men was palpable. Deacon's composure faltered with every word, every measured glance, every subtle pause from Zayla. She did not need to raise her voice. Her calm, unshakable presence did all the work. Soraya, is oblivious to the subtle shifts in power, continued her own reckless displays of arrogance, ensuring Zayla's position remained unassailable. Every action Soraya took became proof of intent, every word a tool Zayla could use when the time came to strike. After dinner, Zayla excused herself under the guise of preparing for the evening's social calls. Alone with Malik, she reviewed the notes from the day. The evidence was overwhelming. Soraya's audacity, Deacon's panic, and the network of lies that had nearly undermined her authority. They're unraveling faster than I expected, Malik remarked, impressed by Zayla's foresight. She nodded, calm and resolute. Patience is the key. They will expose themselves fully if we let them play their hand. I will not act too soon. I will let the panic and arrogance do the work for me. Night fell, and the city outside twinkled with fireworks and celebration, unaware of the high-stakes drama unfolding within the Morel estate. Zayla observed from the balcony, her gaze sweeping the skyline, mind already calculating the next steps. Deacon remained in the drawing room, trapped in his own web of fear, unable to escape the consequences of his choices. Soraya continued to flaunt confidence, unaware that every move was being recorded, noted, and destined to be revealed in a way that would ensure their defeat. By midnight, Zayla had everything she needed: proof, positioning, and control. The game had shifted entirely in her favor. What had begun as a shocking New Year's Eve message had become the opening act of a meticulously orchestrated plan. Deacon's arrogance and Soraya's recklessness had sealed their fates, and Zayla's patient strategy ensured that when the moment of exposure came, it would be undeniable, humiliating, and irreversible. As fireworks illuminated the night sky, Zayla allowed herself a subtle smile, the kind that promised both justice and strategy. The year had begun with chaos, but she had already transformed it into order. The balance of power had shifted entirely, and she was ready for the next step. The night had grown heavy, the grand hall of the Morel estate now dimly lit, with crystal sconces casting elongated shadows across the polished marble floors. The gala, intended as a celebration for the city's elite, had shifted into a stage for Zayla Kendrick's careful orchestration. She moved like a queen among pawns, every step measured, every gaze purposeful, her black velvet gown flowing like liquid shadow. Outside, fireworks exploded in a cacophony of color, but inside, an even more explosive drama was about to unfold. Deacon Morel attempted to maintain composure as he lingered near the bar, swirling his glass of aged cognac, trying to mask the panic coiling in his chest. And he had spent hours replaying Zayla's smirk from the night before. The way her calm eyes had stripped him bare of arrogance. Each thought, each excuse was now meaningless. He was trapped in a psychological vice, the grip tightening with every glance Zayla threw his way. Soraya Wells, his mistress, tried to appear unbothered, laughing lightly at jokes from other guests, but her fingers fidgeted with the edge of her clutch. She did not yet grasp the depth of Zayla's awareness. Zayla had spent this day preparing for this moment. Each piece of evidence, each intercepted message, each minor slip from Deacon and Soraya had been cataloged and arranged in her mind like pieces on a chessboard. She had no intention of rushing. Patience would ensure maximum exposure. Every conversation she had casually engaged in earlier that evening subtly manipulated her targets, drawing them deeper into the trap she had set. Their hubris and ignorance were her greatest allies. As the evening progressed, Zayla approached the center of the grand hall, gathering the attention of key guests. Her voice was calm, smooth, yet commanding, resonating through the space like a subtle drumbeat. "It's a beautiful night," she said, scanning the room, "and a perfect time for new beginnings." Her words seemed innocent enough, yet there was an edge to them that drew the gaze of Deacon and Soraya, making their unease almost palpable. Deacon shifted uncomfortably, as aware of the invisible thread Zayla had woven around him. He tried to intercept her smile with a casual glance, but she held his gaze, unwavering, as if daring him to respond. In that moment, the power dynamic had shifted entirely. Where he once commanded attention through wealth and manipulation, now he was merely another character on her stage. Soraya's attempts to project confidence only highlighted her vulnerability. Her overconfidence had become her undoing. Zayla continued, "How some choices are made in secrecy, but the consequences—" She let the words hang in the air, deliberately vague, yet dripping with implication. She paused, letting the weight of her presence settle over Deacon and Soraya. "Are rarely hidden forever." A subtle flick of her wrist revealed a small device in her hand, a tablet streaming intercepted messages, photographs, and evidence that exposed the full extent of their duplicity. Gasps rippled through the hall as the first images flashed on the screen. The crowd, previously unaware, now stared, captivated by the unfolding revelation. Deacon's face paled, his carefully constructed mask of arrogance shattering with every photograph, every message revealed. The whispers of guests grew louder, punctuated by the soft, satisfied click of Zayla advancing toward him. She did not yell. She did not need to. Every piece of evidence was indisputable, and every action of his and Soraya's laid bare for all to see. The humiliation was total, immediate, and irreversible. Soraya tried to speak, to interject some explanation, but her voice faltered under the weight of exposure. Her carefully crafted confidence evaporated, leaving panic and fear in its place. Zayla's eyes, steady and piercing, met hers. "Do you see now?" Zayla asked softly. "Why some games are better left unplayed?" Soraya's lips trembled, yet the realization that she had underestimated Zayla's patience and intelligence settling like a stone in her chest. Deacon, desperate to salvage anything, tried to speak, his voice quivering with a mixture of fear and pride. "Zayla, you don't understand." His words were cut off by the calm precision of her next gesture. She gestured to Malik, who had been discreetly monitoring the situation, and a soft chime echoed as more incriminating messages and records were displayed for the entire room. Every lie, every secret meeting, every financial irregularity appeared in perfect clarity. Deacon's choke of disbelief was audible. He had thought the night would end with whispers behind closed doors, not in the full glare of witnesses. The room's atmosphere was electric. Guests whispered, murmurs growing louder as they pieced together the betrayal that had been hidden in plain sight. Zayla's authority was undeniable, her strategy flawless, that she had orchestrated the perfect reveal. Deacon's panic, Soraya's fear, and the audience's astonishment combined into a symphony of psychological domination. Every move she had made had been anticipated, every risk calculated. Finally, she stepped closer to Deacon, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Not in tenderness, but as a subtle mark of control. "This is what happens," she said softly, "when arrogance blinds judgment and deceit meets patience." Deacon's eyes darted around the room, seeking any ally, any escape, but there was none. He had been outmaneuvered completely, not through violence, not through intimidation, but through precision, intelligence, and the quiet inevitability of truth. Soraya's face drained of color. Her arrogance had led her here. Her hubris had been the instrument of her humiliation. She glanced at Deacon, then at Zayla, her mind scrambling to formulate a plan that no longer existed. Zayla's calm smile reminded her that the game was over. Their attempt to control and manipulate had been undone by a single, patient strategist. As the clock neared midnight again, Zayla allowed herself a small, measured smile. Fireworks erupted outside once more, illuminating the city skyline. But inside, the true spectacle was complete. Alejandro, Deacon, was reduced to panic and humiliation. Saria was exposed entirely. Zayla had transformed a message intended to destabilize her into the ultimate tool of control and revenge. By the time the room had quieted, Zayla had already shifted her focus to the next steps, consolidating power, ensuring Deacon's influence was neutralized, and cementing her authority over both the estate and those who sought to undermine it. Her strategy had succeeded perfectly, the psychological victory total, and the lesson clear. Underestimate Zayla Kendrick, and the consequences would be absolute, precise, and inevitable. The aftermath of the gala settled over the Morel estate like a quiet storm. Guests who had witnessed the unfolding drama whispered in hushed tones, their eyes darting between Zayla Kendrick and the now reduced figures of Deacon Morel and Soraya Wells. The night had begun with glittering celebration, but it ended with a tableau of power, exposure, and irreversible consequence. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in white, as if marking a fresh start not just for the year, but for Zayla's dominance over every challenge that had threatened her. Deacon sat in the library, shoulders slumped, face pale, and eyes darting nervously with every sound. His pride, long nurtured, had been shattered publicly. He had been humiliated, stripped of influence, and left grasping at the fragments of a control he no longer possessed. He tried to meet Zayla's eyes when she entered, but her gaze was steady, unwavering, a silent reminder that she was no longer the woman he could manipulate. Every carefully concealed betrayal, every lie he had counted on now lay bare, cataloged in her mind and in the eyes of witnesses. Soraya lingered near the doorway, trembling, her high heels clicking softly against the marble. Her confidence had evaporated under Zayla's precision. She realized too late that her arrogance and overconfidence had made her every move predictable. Every attempt to assert control over Deacon or manipulate Zayla had been anticipated, recorded, and now weaponized. The realization sank deep, leaving a hollow dread in her chest. Zayla did not need to speak. Her presence alone communicated complete mastery over the situation. Zayla approached, her steps measured and deliberate. She paused before Deacon, letting her calm authority fill the room. "Deacon," she said softly, her tone low, deliberate, and unyielding. The choices you made have consequences you cannot avoid. Every lie, every betrayal, every thought you believe secret. It has all led to this moment." Her words were precise, unhurried, and heavy with the weight of inevitability. Deacon swallowed hard, unable to respond, his tongue failing him under the force of her presence. She turned slightly, her gaze locking on Soraya. "And you," she continued, "the one who believed she could manipulate without consequence, who thought arrogance would shield her. You have also miscalculated." Soraya's lips trembled, and her hands fidgeted, the first signs of true fear crossing her face. Zayla's calm smile never faltered. It was a quiet, merciless victory, the kind that required no spectacle, only presence, intelligence, and timing. Zayla's voice softened, almost conversational, as if delivering a lesson rather than punishment. "I gave you every opportunity to correct your mistakes quietly. You ought to show respect where it was due, but your choices made this necessary." She let the words sink in, watching as both Deacon and Soraya realized the full scope of their exposure. The psychological dominance she held over them was complete. Humiliation had become authority. Turning her attention to the documents and messages she had prepared, Zayla began systematically revealing every transaction, every secret meeting, and every attempt to undermine her influence. Guests who remained nearby watched in silent awe as she demonstrated control over both her personal life and the sprawling Morel estate. Every revelation was precise, undeniable, and devastatingly effective. Deacon could only watch, his confidence eroded with every passing second, as the mistress he had depended upon crumbled into panic beside him. After the full account had been displayed and the gravity of their actions laid bare, Zayla stepped back and allowed the room to absorb the weight of her authority. Deacon's shoulders sagged further, and Soraya's face had turned a shade that matched the crimson velvet of Zayla's gown. There was no outcry, no argument, no defiance left. They had both been stripped of power by someone they had underestimated, someone they had believed would react emotionally, not strategically. Zayla had transformed anger and betrayal into calculated dominance, the kind that left no room for retaliation. As the night deepened, Zayla retreated to her private suite, Malik following quietly behind. She allowed herself a moment to breathe, her mind already planning the next steps to consolidate control over the Morel Empire and ensure no similar threat could ever rise. The gala had been a test of patience, intelligence, and foresight, and she had passed flawlessly. Every pawn had been exposed, every threat neutralized, and every advantage secured. In the quiet of her suite, Zayla reflected on the events of the past hours. Her strategy had relied not on anger or brute force, but on meticulous observation and patient orchestration. Deacon's hubris and Soraya's recklessness had been instrumental in securing her victory. By anticipating every move, predicting every lie, and positioning herself perfectly, she had ensured that power and authority remained unchallenged. Although the events of New Year's Eve had become a demonstration of psychological mastery and strategic brilliance, executed flawlessly. By sunrise, the Morel estate returned to its normal rhythm, though the echoes of the night's revelations lingered in every corridor. Deacon, now fully subdued, retreated from public view, his influence over both the family and the business irrevocably diminished. Soraya, humiliated and powerless, was effectively erased from both social and professional spheres, her overconfidence having sealed her downfall. Zayla, meanwhile, moved with renewed authority, her presence commanding respect, her strategic mind already planning for the future. As the city outside stirred with the first light of a new day, Zayla Kendrick allowed herself the subtlest of smiles. The night had begun with a simple message intended to destabilize her, but she had transformed it into an instrument of absolute control. While Deacon's arrogance and Soraya's recklessness had been neutralized without a single overt act of violence, her victory had been psychological, strategic, and complete. The new year had begun, but for Zayla, the true beginning was the consolidation of power and the assurance that no one would ever challenge her authority again. With the last snowflakes settling on the estate's grounds, Zayla stood on the balcony overlooking the city. She was no longer merely a wife or heiress. She was the orchestrator of destiny, the strategist who had turned betrayal into triumph, humiliation into authority, and arrogance into a lesson in patience and foresight. The balance of power had been irrevocably altered, and she had done it with grace, intelligence, and precision. The night's chaos had become her testament, and her empire, both personal and professional, remained untouchable under her steady, commanding gaze.